Okay, so in this video I wanted to talk about the Kirtland Safety Society. There's a lot of misconceptions about this. Even members of the church are really confused by this period in our history. That was a very dark time, tremendous apostasy that occurred, especially with the leaders of the church, and we'll talk about that. But there's four big things that are often talked about with this. The failure proved that Joseph was not a prophet, that Joseph was trying to deceive by doing this, that Joseph operated an illegal operation and knew he was doing that. And then that the failure was due to Joseph recklessly printing banknotes. So we'll be talking about that. And I wanted to do this video maybe more of a Q&A kind of format. So here's a question, and then I'll give some thoughts on it. So first of all, why did the saints set up a bank in the first place? Well, this was in the infancy of the economy in the United States. There were frontier banks popping up in different places to help the economies move. There was really a lot of illiquid assets, with land being the main asset. Kirtland was growing like crazy. It had doubled in the last 2 years, so they really needed to have some currency to help the economy to flow and be out of a barter type of system. I do want to share one quote from the Painesville Republican Ohio newspaper about the opening of the Kirtland Safety Society in January of 1837. Here from the paper says, "It is said they have a large amount of specie on hand and have the means of obtaining much more if necessary. If these facts be so, its circulation in some shape would be beneficial to community and sensibly relieve the pressure in the market so much complained of." Was it legal? Well, they tried to get a charter twice. They were denied. There was some religious persecution, but there was also some fear of banks by some of the people in the legislature at the time, and some hard money people that wanted just coins to operate without banks. So there's different things, but even the second time they went back with non-members, they weren't able to get it. They changed it to an anti-bank. That's why you may have heard it referred to an anti-bank before, and operated as a joint stock company. Here's the interesting thing. Critics will point out Joseph Smith and Sidney Rigdon were convicted of operating an illegal bank or operating a bank without a charter. They were both fined $1,000. So that proves they were guilty, correct? Well, let me share this with you. This is from R. McKay White, and I'm going to put a paper that he did. He is an economist and an attorney. Great combination for addressing this. He did a great paper on the Kirtland Safety Society. I'll put the link in the resources. But listen to this. He says, the Committee of Revision, it was in the Ohio legislature, drafted a statute to replace the 1816 Act, and that was what Joseph was convicted under, which was adopted by the government in 1824. This act did not make banking without a charter illegal. The only legal consequence of circulating notes from a bank without a charter was that such notes were deemed null and void in the courts. There is no prohibition against issuing and circulating these notes, and no penalty for officers of unchartered banks. Under the 1824 Act, the Safety Society was legal. The prosecutor and the judge actually were both tied to an antagonist of the church, and so that can give you a little bit of insight there. The appeal was not heard because the saints were fleeing to Missouri, and so it probably would have been overturned if it was brought up. Okay, was it a wildcat bank? So these were banks, no it was not. These were banks that were set up as a makeshift operation, and the redemption spot for you to redeem was set out in the sticks somewhere where the wildcats are, and it was a fictitious location. Essentially it was a defrauding operation. The Kirtland Safety Society was set up in the middle of town, so clearly not a wildcat bank. How was it organized and funded? Well, there weren't any MBAs at that time. Nobody could really have the skills to run the bank. So Joseph and Sidney were just as good as anybody else, really, to run the bank. It was set up as a joint stock company. There were over 100 shareholders. Even some non-members were involved because they thought it was a great idea there to help the economy there in Kirtland. Okay, so was a revelation involved in the founding, and was Joseph acting in his capacity as a prophet? Now this one's really critical, and the answers to both of those are no and no. Let me read these two quotes here. This is an interview with, this is McKay White in his paper. He says the Safety Society wasn't based on revelation. There was no direction from the Lord to establish it. Joseph Smith did not start it in his capacity as a prophet. The Safety Society was therefore like any other business establishment in Kirtland, and quite capable of failure. Secondly, Latter-day Saints do not believe their leaders are infallible. Given the Safety Society was not directed by God, and that Joseph Smith was subject to mortal weaknesses and failings, there was always a chance the Safety Society would not succeed. Failure, however, would have no bearing on his calling as a prophet. Furthermore, as will be established, the failure had nothing to do with Joseph Smith or Sidney Rigdon. The Safety Society failed because of the poor use of agency of others. Then I wanted to share this from a LDS Perspectives podcast. And I'll link this, episode 64, Religious and Financial Panic in Kirtland. This is an interview with the historian Elizabeth Cohen. The question is posed to her, is it correct that Joseph Smith prophesied that the Kirtland Safety Society would be successful? And she said that's a really interesting question. Technically, he did not. Wilford Woodruff records in his journal that on the first day that the notes were available in exchange, that Joseph had said that he had a revelation that the bank would be successful if executed on righteous principles. Later in a meeting on September 3, 1837, when John F. Boynton will bring up this very question of, well, the bank was founded on revelation, how could it fail? Joseph will correct him and say, I never said that. I said that it had to be conducted on righteous principles, and it was not. There is this sense that he's not only defending the failure of the bank, but also limiting the revelation. This isn't a continuation of the United Firm. This isn't something that we have a revelation laying out exactly what they should do. It seems more as if he's receiving direction to try something out that he, Sidney Rigdon, and others have said. A bank looks really promising. Let's move forward with this. You kind of get the revelation after the fact saying, okay, this is what you want to try it. If you function in the way that it's supposed to, it can be successful. One last quick little side note, it's kind of interesting. Joseph did say optimistically one time he thought the notes would be as good as gold someday. Today they actually are. If you go onto eBay and try and buy a note of the Kirtland Safety Society, it's multiples of the price of gold today. Anywhere, typically $3,000 to $12,000, depending on different factors, for a single note. Okay, did Joseph try to deceive the people about the amount of coin reserves? Absolutely not. There was a story that continued to pass around that they had chests on banks within the vault that had sand in the chests with silver coins on top. Well, the problem is the vault itself was 2 foot by 2 foot by about 2.5 feet. So it couldn't have even happened. Did Joseph recklessly print banknotes? Well, they printed 100,000 banknotes to fund the Safety Society. They had $21,000 in reserve of gold and silver coins. That would be a reserve ratio of 21%, which was considered very good capitalization for a bank. In fact, today the only requirement in the U.S. is 10%. There. They also had a lot of land as collateral as well, so absolutely not. Why did it fail then? Well, some people point to them not having a formal charter, and others operated banks without that, and many, they weren't persecuted or prosecuted like Joseph was, we already talked about. But I would say that had a limited impact. It might have created a concern for using the notes by people. The Panic of 1837 in the U.S., the land values plummeted. It was a depression. 1/3 of the banks in the United States failed. This, if you talk to people that don't know a lot of the details about this story, this is what they pinned it on. It certainly helped to finish off the bank, but the bank really fell apart before this took hold. And it fell apart in the first few months, particularly. The biggest components was an antagonist and an apostate. Those two. The antagonist was Grandison Newell. He was a competitor of lots of different businesses with those in Kirtland, the neighboring town of Painesville. He went out and they were trying to buy up every note that they could get on this, and then they would go in and try and redeem it for they call it specie, but for the coins, to try and wipe out their reserves. This was driving down the value of the notes, and so they could buy up even more on there. Sidney Rigdon panicked, closed the bank literally for 24 hours, didn't know what to do. Joseph was out of town at this moment. And that helped also to lower the confidence in the bank. You had the Saints then, John Johnson panicked. He sold a bunch of the land that was being used for collateral. The Saints wouldn't take, many of the merchants wouldn't take the notes for doing business. Many of the people that had pledged to contribute for the stock to fund the company would not pay their commitments for this. So it's really, it was a domino effect that started from Grandison Newell. He accomplished what he was trying to do. There was another very bad thing that happened within the bank, and it was from Warren Parrish. He became a bitter apostate, and he later admitted to Heber C. Kimball that he actually had embezzled $20,000. Joseph claimed that he noticed that whenever Warren was involved with if it was just Warren involved with the money, that money would come up missing. And there was a trunk there, and by the time he was able to get a search warrant to look in the trunk disappeared and was gone. So that also helped to wipe out the reserve. So those are the reasons why it really did fail. Did Joseph lose anything? Well, look at the screen here. Joseph Smith was, along with 3 others, the largest shareholder of the Safety Society. All else equal, he would stand to lose more. The most of the Safety Society failed. He also paid more per share than 85% of the shareholders. If he was in it for the money, he would have gotten out at the first signs of trouble. Instead, while the Safety Society was really struggling, he increased his subscription in order to try to help the Safety Society succeed. That was not only took out 3 loans on behalf of the Safety Society to give some added liquidity, and then finally he even sold additional $5,000 in personal property in order to give more rescue help. Okay, how many apostatized from this? Well, this could be a whole other story on its own, but this was a nightmare. I won't go into all the detail, but Joseph wrote in his journal, it seemed as though all the powers of earth and hell were combining their influence in a special manner to overthrow the church at once and make a final end. 1/3 of the leaders of the church apostatized through this. In fact, they tried to start up their own organization, which failed. But that's and then about 1/8 of the church members failed. It was in this point that Joseph sent out some of his best brethren out to mission to Britain that really saved the church as they moved to later to Nauvoo and brought in a lot of new members and leaders there. I talked about that in a separate video too. Why would Joseph send off some of his greatest when he needed them the most? Okay, what are some lessons from this? Well, Milton Backman wrote in the Ensign an article called A Warning from Kirtland. I'll link to this. But he said, saints who look back on this period learned some compelling lessons of which we today need to be aware. One of the pointed lessons we learned from the Kirtland apostasy is that no one should consider himself secure from the loss of faith. Pride, criticism, speculation, envy, greed, these are enough to cause the most faithful to stumble. Partly P. Pratt, for example, declared that envyings, lying, strifes, and divisions caused trouble and sorrow in Kirtland. He admitted that he was a victim of these failings, but the Lord knew his faith, his integrity of purpose, and helped him in his victory against an opposing spirit. Orson Hyde recalled that because he acted foolishly during this period of darkness, he temporarily lost the light of the Holy Ghost. Luke S. Johnson admitted that his mind became darkened and he neglected his church responsibilities after he had partaken of the spirit of speculation. So in conclusion, I wanted to just put on the screen 3-paragraph summaries of almost everything I talked about here that you can look at if you like. Hope you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more. Thanks.